Welcome back to the deep dive. Our mission here is pretty simple. We take your complex source material, all the raw notes, the long articles, the book drafts, and we turn it into instant, deeply informed expertise.
Exactly.
And today, we are diving into a really fascinating stack of content. It's focused on two college students, Russ Callahan and Aurora Roberts, as they navigate this intensely emotional, rule-bound summer at a place called Honey Acres Sleepaway Camp.
And this really isn't just a romance story. I mean, you could label it that, but it's actually a deep dive into the psychology of avoidance. It's fascinating.
Avoidance, that's a good word for it.
Yeah, because our sources are so rich in internal monologues, we can trace exactly how these two people, both carrying just massive, highly individualized family baggage, managed to overcome these really ingrained patterns.
Patterns of what, exactly?
Miscommunication, for one.
Yeah.
But also, cripplingly low expectations, self-sabotage, all to find a genuine, lasting connection.
So that's the core tension we're tracking, right?
Right.
How do you shed the weight of a toxic past when it dictates, every single choice you make? Okay, let's unpack this journey, and let's start at the foundation. The environment that Russ Callahan is trying just desperately to escape.
So the story opens in this chaotic, high-energy environment. It's the UCMH hockey house at Maple Hills College.
Right.
And on the surface, it's a typical jock residence, but our sources show it's way more complex. It's the primary social ecosystem for their core group of friends. And crucially, it's the only family Russ actually trusts.
It really does function almost like a highly trained military unit.
Yeah.
We know the key players. You've got his roommates, Henry, Turner, and Robbie, and then the unofficial residents, Maddie, Bobby, and Chris.
Right, and Nate and his girlfriend Stassi are always around. And then there's JJ. JJ is so central to Russ's support system, and tellingly, he's the captain of the team.
That leadership dynamic is key.
It is. And what's immediately striking is how their camaraderie is built not really on shared hobbies, but on this shared intensity and, frankly, shared trauma responses related to their hockey life.
Okay, let's talk about that. The single clap from Robbie.
Yes. This seemingly innocuous noise, it's an immediate behavioral trigger.
It's not just a loud noise. The sources say it's an internalized signal. It's an echo of their coach, Coach Faulkner, and it causes these instantaneous hockey flashbacks.
It prompts immediate reflexive attention. The source literally says they're like well-trained dogs.
And they joke about it, but in this really dark way. Joe and Maddie both mention having an actual trauma response to the sound.
Which highlights that this group is defined by intense, sometimes negative conditioning. It's a bond forged in pressure, and that communication style, it bleeds into everything, even their arguments.
Like that really specific reference Joe makes to Chris about clap her cheeks, singular.
Exactly. It's this very tight, highly specific, almost coded language of affection and, confrontation. They get each other on a level that outsiders just wouldn't.
And that high-level proximity means they know everything about each other, down to their most vulnerable, private moments, which is, I think, perfectly shown by that ongoing bet about Stassi, Nate's girlfriend.
This is such a fantastic detail. It grounds their relationships in this messy reality. They have this established tradition of betting on when Stassi will cry at parties.
It sounds so dark.
It is dark, yeah, but it shows they are hyper-aware of her emotional volatility, and they track it. It's a weird form of paying attention. And in this particular instance, JJ wins the bet because she cries before she even has any alcohol.
And the fact that Lola, Robbie's girlfriend, is totally in on this tradition, she pays up, she calls JJ by his last name, Joe Hall. It tells you this isn't just some insulated boys club.
Not at all. She's integrated, she respects the house rules, she's a willing participant in the chaos, and this whole collective unit. This is Russ's safe harbor, which is really important context for why his summer choice is seen as so radical.
Precisely. So against the backdrop of this extremely intense, hyper-functional male family, Russ Callahan announces he's going to work as a counselor at Honey Acres Sleepaway Camp for the summer.
And the reaction from his friends is just, it's immediate and visceral. They see it as a profound failure of ambition.
His roommate Henry is disgusted.
Utterly disgusted. He calls the plan manual labor and jokes that Russ is going to work in a slaughterhouse. Robbie is a little less horrified, but still totally dismissive. He's like, could be worse. Maybe you could be moving to Canada.
It really underscores how far outside their collegiate athletic norm this choice is. To them, Russ is actively downgrading his life.
But the sources pivot really quickly and show us that the job logistics, they're actually highly desirable, especially for someone who's seeking, financial and personal control.
They are. The camp is for busy and rich parents.
Which means high fees, which translates directly to high-quality facilities, and most importantly, better pay for the counselors. And Russ gets multiple full days off, which he knows is a rare luxury in the camp world.
The only real negative Henry can point to is the night duty, sleeping in a room attached to the camper's cabin twice a week.
Right.
And that just symbolizes the responsibility he's taking on.
Right.
So why Honey Acres? It looks like a downgrade to his friends, but what does the source material tell us is the real reason behind this huge summer commitment?
And this is where we link back to the core psychological theme of his life: the search for a reliable family structure. Russ explicitly joined a fraternity earlier, and the source says he was seeking a family that wouldn't let me down like my real one does. But that fraternity failed him. Big time. Especially when, quote, the shit happened with the rink.
So we're seeing a history of him being let down by institutions that promise brotherhood.
Exactly. And the source have confirmed that the only people who were there for him after that incident are the friends he's currently living with. The hockey team is his functional replacement family.
So the camp, being 4 hours away, it represents a different kind of stability.
A controlled environment, a place where the rules are clear, expectations are defined, and he can be physically and emotionally distanced from the chaos of his biological family, their financial instability, the emotional blackmail. It's a constant threat. He really views this as a summer-long emotional detox.
So while Russ is charting his escape route, Aurora Roberts is navigating that same final party, but with a philosophy that mirrors Russ's deepest shame.
How so?
An expectation of chaos and a commitment to low-stakes fun.
Ah, yes. Her pre-camp status quo is defined by low expectations for men and low commitment fun. She's nursing a drink, questioning her life choices, but she's maintained this successful, string-free, friends with benefits situation with Ryan Rothwell, who's about to graduate.
And her praise for Ryan is so telling, isn't it?
Yeah.
She calls him a great guy who should be awarded by the college for his services to women's happiness.
The fact that that is the peak of her praise reveals this profound underlying cynicism about male relationships.
Absolutely. The source notes her expectations for men are so low they're in the pits of hell. She has preemptively lowered the bar so she can never be disappointed.
And we see that cynicism on full display in her confrontation with the party's minor antagonist, this guy Mason Wright.
Mason Wright. He's the perfect foil to Russ Wright. He's this overly confident freshman basketball player described in almost rock star terms. Tall, black hair, piercing blue eyes, detailed tattoos. And Aurora just rejects him instantly.
She rejects him for his age first, saying, "You're a freshman." But then she zeroes in on his actual vulnerability. She recognizes a shared toxic pathology, the daddy issues that permeate both their lives, and she weaponizes it instantly just to maintain control.
She goes right for the jugular. She exposes his perceived nepotism by asking for his father's number to get a spot on the basketball team.
This is Aurora at her most guarded. It's an aggressive display, but it's rooted in self-protection. She knows she's hit a nerve when his trademark smirk just drops. And her parting shot, shouting after him that his daddy issues are showing, isn't just a clever insult.
No, it's painful foreshadowing.
Exactly. She's projecting her own core wound onto him, demonstrating that she knows exactly how to hurt someone who values external validation over familial honesty. This interaction, it's the perfect culmination of her pre-camp coping mechanism. Loud recklessness to mask profound insecurity.
And that brings us to part 2, where those walls start to come down. We've seen the foundation of chaos and camaraderie, but the real story begins when rule-following Russ and reckless Aurora finally, well, they crash into each other in the quiet sanctuary of the kitchen.
And this initial setting is designed to immediately challenge Aurora's assumptions about the world she's in. She walks into the hockey house, a place defined by these intense, athletic men, and she's expecting chaos, germs, a total lack of care. But she's surprised.
The sources mention the tidiness, the framed photos of the guys, floors that aren't sticky, and the shocking presence of a coaster. Why is the coaster such an important detail?
Because it represents attention and care. The coaster is this tiny, domestic symbol of respect for property and order. Aurora's entire defensive mechanism is built on the expectation that men are slovenly, uncaring, and irresponsible.
And Russ's house, and by extension Russ himself, immediately subverts her lowest expectations.
Completely. And she's there, playing Goldilocks, rummaging for a glass because she refuses to use plastic cups, which leads to this deep dive into her actual values.
Right, she stops her crime to launch into this surprisingly lengthy conversation about environmentalism.
This is essential character layering. Beneath that party girl facade, Aurora has these strong, deeply held convictions about planetary responsibility. She lists the potential victims: fish, turtles, whales, and my favorite, possibly an octopus or two.
It shows a capacity for profound care and detail.
A capacity she usually only directs toward global causes, not personal relationships. And Russ, who first thinks she's a burglar, reveals he lives there and helps her find the mismatched glasses, which are another signal of the group's specific collective history.
And their initial chemistry is.
Yeah.
It's immediate, even though Russ is fighting through his own self-consciousness.
Aurora takes him in. She sees he's tall, muscular, biceps, fighting to escape the sleeves of his t-shirt. But she focuses on his soft features, his light brown hair, and these striking sapphire blue eyes. She finds that blend of physical intensity and internal awkwardness charming.
Meanwhile, Russ is trying to channel what he calls artificial confidence, a technique he learned from JJ.
Yeah, he admits he usually needs time or alcohol to relax, so he's already operating way outside his comfort zone just by talking to her.
And this vulnerability gets tested severely during the social ritual of drunk Jenga. The rules are complicated and high stakes, designed by Robbie and JJ.
Oh, the rules are engineered for maximum exposure. Dares have forfeits, 2 shots, or 1 if you're not a 200-pound hockey player.
Yeah.
And knocking over the tower, that requires the ultimate public humiliation, streaking down Mabel Ave.
So the whole game's a pressure cooker. It's designed to force confessions or public displays.
Exactly. And Russ pulls a block that demands he show his last received message, or the forfeit. Send Faulkner an I love you text, and he just immediately downs 2 shots. The speed of his avoidance tells you everything.
The avoidance is so swift because the shame is so deep.
It is. The source reveals the message is a request for money from his father, and it's coupled with the most toxic kind of emotional blackmail. You have everything because of me. You've turned your back on this family. Russ is terrified of revealing his family's reality, especially to Aurora.
He sees it as a source of weakness.
Total weakness. He literally risks 2 shots to avoid showing his shame, even though Aurora assumes he's just protecting something scandalous like nudes, which he finds nice because she respects his privacy.
That's a subtle but important moment.
Yeah.
She grants him dignity, even when assuming the worst.
Then the atmosphere shifts instantly when Aurora draws her dare, written by Lola. Give your nearest hockey player a lap dance for 2 minutes.
And Russ is the nearest player. And he's already conveniently shirtless from an earlier forfeit. This moment is physically intimate, but emotionally, it's just pure chaos.
For Russ, it's labeled as torture. Despite the undeniable physical attraction, it's the audience that kills him. He struggles so hard to maintain that artificial confidence.
And for Aurora, who prides herself on being string-free and detached, she suddenly finds herself straddling a total stranger with a visible erection, realizing she forgot her whole summer self-improvement plan the second she walked into the party.
It's this forced, charged intimacy that just bypasses all their usual defenses.
And after the party, the real emotional core surfaces in Russ's room, which sets up the defining pattern of their early relationship, the infamous miscommunication thing.
Right. But before Russ even gets back to the room, Aurora is caught in this moment of profound self-sabotage.
She's feeling jealous of her friends Amelia and Poppy's disgustingly perfect relationship, confessing she's never even had a real date.
And then she pulls out her phone to engage in her favorite way to hurt my own feelings, snooping on her dad's latest girlfriend, this ex-weather woman, Nora, using a fake account. She is actively seeking out pain to validate her own low self-worth.
Russ interrupts this spiral, and instead of using their physical connection as leverage, he offers this genuine admission of vulnerability, which is completely against his nature.
He comes back to check on her and gives her what he calls his secret, which is actually this raw confession. He says, "My secret is I don't really like parties, but I'm glad I came to this one and met you, and when I couldn't find you, I was sad when I thought you'd left."
He even admits, "I'm not good at talking to people I'm interested in." This is radical honesty, unfiltered by alcohol or a dare. It's a massive emotional risk for him.
But because their histories have conditioned them to expect rejection, that raw vulnerability is immediately misinterpreted. Aurora leaves his room, which leads to the miscommunication thing.
Right. Why did she leave?
She left because she heard him talking to himself. It was that internal pep talk he learned from JJ about faking confidence. But because her default expectation is to be unwanted, she interprets his effort at self-motivation as impatience.
So she thought he wanted her to leave. A rejection.
A total rejection in her mind. And Russ clarifies later that he was hyping myself up to ask you out. This entire interaction just perfectly encapsulates their pathology. Their shared histories have programmed them to prioritize avoidance and assumption over simple, honest conversation.
It's avoidance through assumption.
Exactly. Russ assumes she needs space. Aurora assumes he wants her gone, and it's only by confronting this initial misunderstanding that they realize they need a completely new operating manual for their relationship, one based on openness, not on projection.
So the action shifts entirely to Honeyacres. This place Russ saw as his stable refuge. But it quickly becomes the pressure cooker for their relationship. And the camp structure is defined by its leadership, Orla Murphy.
The resident dinosaur.
Right. She's the camp executive director and owner.
Her family founded the camp, which reinforces the established, rigid nature of the place. And those rules are clear and non-negotiable, particularly the central rule that dictates the entire summer's conflict. Absolutely no staff fraternization.
And staff cannot hang out in each other's cabins.
Which Russ specifically is determined to adhere to, because his job security, and therefore his emotional escape, is tied directly to this strict adherence.
He needs this job to maintain that stability he craves. We know his family couldn't afford camp when he was younger, and the lingering specter of his father's addiction meant finances were always uncertain.
So breaking a rule means losing the one thing he has absolute control over, his financial independence and his distance from home. The stakes are so much higher for him than for anyone else.
Aurora, on the other hand, has a deep history here, and it's tied to Jenna, a director at the camp.
Jenna was Aurora's longtime camp counselor, and she really acted as the needed sister figure in Aurora's fragmented family life. Jenna was the tooth fairy, the savior when I got my first period, and the shoulder to cry on after her first kiss.
So Jenna represents this safe, non-judgmental female support, something her mother failed to provide.
Exactly. And this dynamic immediately puts pressure on Russ because Jenna is fiercely protective of Aurora.
She's wary of him from the start.
Very wary. She groans when she finds out they already hooked up, immediately expresses concern, and says she never wants to hear details of Aurora's sex life. So Russ isn't just dealing with Orla's anti-fraternization rule, he's dealing with the maternal protective instinct of Aurora's emotional surrogate parent.
And just for a moment of levity amidst all the high drama and high rules, we have the camp mascots, the dogs.
The dogs are a beautiful example of how the camp is serious about structure, but also fundamentally silly and safe. You have Fish, a fluffy golden retriever belonging to Jenna, and her two chubbier puppies, Salmon and Trout.
Wait, hold on. The dogs are named Fish, Salmon, and Trout. That level of just mundane absurdity is such a classic writing device.
It absolutely is. It grounds the story. And they're constant sources of amusement. Their names are noted as funny, and they operate completely outside the rules, sleeping in beds, often outshining Orla during announcements. And they're also excellent, non-judgmental barometers of character.
Because Fish immediately picks Russ as a favorite.
Immediately. Okay, so moving to the staff, Russ finds an immediate, comfortable alliance with his roommate, Xander Smith.
Xander is a critical element for Russ's character development.
He is. He's chill, he's tidy, he goes to Stanford, and most importantly, he has this social radar that stops him from pushing Russ too far. When Russ gives a vague answer about knowing Aurora and Amelia from college, Xander doesn't press. He's the perfect non-judgmental sounding board.
And in stark contrast to Xander and Russ, we have Clay, the conventionally attractive guy who exists purely as a foil.
Clay is the symbol of that surface-level male performance that Aurora naturally despises. He's tall, sharp jaw, but his overconfidence, his bragging about basketball at Berkeley or USC, and his immediate objectification. His eyes drop instantly to Aurora's chest. It makes him instantly off-putting.
And Aurora finds him boring.
Utterly boring. Her critique of his extensive use of hair gel, joking it could cause a pollution incident in the lake, it just summarizes her disdain for people who prioritize appearance over substance.
The initial training period exposes Russ to some of the most awkward parts of camp life, reinforcing his natural aversion to forced interaction.
Right, training includes standard first aid, which ironically, Coach Faulkner makes the hockey players do yearly, so Russ is an old hand at it. But then there's the specter of harness safety training, which Russ remembers hilariously because he spent most of his time eye level with Xander's dick.
And his aversion to icebreakers, his least favorite thing, just emphasizes his internal anxiety about presenting himself and his history to strangers.
But the most important dynamic shift happens when Aurora makes a deliberate, conscious decision to break her cycle of self-sabotage.
She realizes that seeking pain by snooping on her father's new life it's unsustainable.
So she makes this profound, deliberate move. She locks her cell phone away, deletes the fake snooping account, and decides explicitly to concentrate on you, meaning her own self-worth and her future, not his approval. This is her commitment to self-worth over external validation.
But this new commitment immediately clashes with their escalating chemistry during group activities. It forces them to navigate their attraction in public.
Right. During a team-building activity, getting a team across platforms with widening gaps, Russ and Xander are teasing Clay, suggesting they walk over him like a plank. And Aurora, who is supposed to be focusing on herself, can't help but be drawn into their shared humor.
And her quiet comment, "Don't knock until you've tried it." That's the moment the rule-following Russ loses his composure.
It causes his cheeks to flush pink. It's this quiet but deeply suggestive piece of dialogue, showing she's comfortable being provocative around him. And later, during first aid training, Aurora makes a sexual joke about bandaging Russ.
Only to immediately pull back.
Yeah, she calls herself embarrassed Aurora and realizes she made it weird.
Yeah.
This illustrates their constant oscillation. They get close, they make a joke that reveals their true attraction, and then they retreat back into this rule-bound awkwardness.
And this oscillation peaks during the water safety training at the lake. This is the moment Russ finally breaks through his self-imposed inhibition.
It's a classic, beautiful tension build. Russ is impressed that Amelia drives stick, which is a detail that shows he appreciates competence. Then when Aurora clings to him after "something touched my foot,"
Which was probably just a plant.
almost certainly a plant, but still terrifying. The physical proximity is immediate. And Aurora, taking him in while he pushes wet hair from his face, notes he is so fucking beautiful it hurts. She is just overwhelmed by the purity of his attraction.
But it's Russ, the usually guarded one, who stuns them both by verbalizing the attraction in such a raw, direct way.
He says, "Trust me, you taste incredible." That line is a massive emotional breach of his own rules. It's not about flirtation, it's about a deep physical certainty of their connection. And Aurora's reaction, hoping a shark is about to save me from myself, shows she is terrified.
Terrified by the intensity of it.
And by the certainty that she is now absolutely going to break the rules she knows Russ needs to keep. They are well past the point of casual flirtation, and that anti-fraternization rule is about to shatter under the weight of their desire.
We've reached the pressure cooker, part 4. This is where the camp rules finally break, because the weight of their respective family histories becomes just too heavy to contain. And it starts with Russ's first family crisis, forcing him right back into the chaos he fled.
Russ gets a frantic call. He has to drive 4 hours. His brother, Ethan, claims their father is in the hospital and their mother needs support. And this is the first betrayal in this sequence. Upon arrival, Russ discovers Ethan lied.
The dad is awake, and Ethan is just on tour.
On tour, implied to be high or just avoiding the whole mess, Russ has been yanked right back into the toxic cycle of misinformation and crisis management.
And the confrontation with his mother is so revealing. She's trapped in the cycle too. Initially, she puts the blame back on Russ, demanding he stop his delayed teenage rebellion phase.
She's operating from a place of fear and denial. She's trying to protect her fragile structure by controlling Russ. But then she gives him this unexpected permission, a massive break in their established pattern of silence. She says, "Tell your dad how you feel. What do you have to lose?"
The psychological significance of that is huge. For years, Russ has been conditioned to suppress his anger, to maintain the peace. But now the person who upheld that system has given him the green light.
Exactly. It's a sudden, terrifying freedom. And Russ follows through. He confronts his bruised and wired father with just raw honesty. He tells him, "You've broken our family and I don't know how we can fix it."
And the father's reaction is surprising, isn't it? He doesn't get angry.
No, which might have been easier for Russ to deal with. His passivity is unsettling. But Russ leaves quickly, feeling this intense shame when he contrasts his family's reality, his father prioritizing a very different kind of racetrack over his family, with the external success of Aurora's famous billion-dollar industry family.
And that shame is the driving force behind his instinct to push her away later.
Completely. He fears she will look at his life and judge him.
And this shame is precisely what Aurora is determined to dismantle. She steps in immediately, using the safety of her secret spot, this crystal-clear water source far from the camp, to encourage radical honesty.
That secluded spot is a psychological sanctuary. It has to be, because the camp itself is too rule-bound. She encourages him to share his baggage. And Russ confesses his biggest shame, hating that his father told him he was the opposite of brave.
That insult cuts deeper than any financial crisis because it questions his fundamental character.
It does, and this confession opens the door for Aurora's own trauma dump. Her story is so layered, and it links her current cynicism directly to her father, Chuck Roberts.
She reveals the devastating truth that Chuck favors her sister, Elsa, the socialite who looks just like him, specifically because Aurora is a carbon copy of their mother, whom Chuck hates.
She describes this painful, cyclical pattern of seeking his approval only to be repeatedly let down when he prioritizes his new partner, Nora, and Nora's daughter, Isabel.
Even her name is tied to this dysfunction.
A detail that reveals the depth of the toxicity. She was named Aurora after the Northern Lights, the location of her conception. A fact her mother shared explicitly to traumatize me. Her entire identity is linked to a source of parental conflict. She wasn't just neglected, she was weaponized.
And the shared realization of their complementary dysfunction instantly bonds them. It bridges the gap created by that earlier miscommunication thing.
They recognize they are a walking advertisement for daddy issues. They realize their pain isn't a solitary failing. And Russ, who hated his father, is able to clarify the nuanced truth. He hates the way his father makes him feel ashamed, unreliable, unworthy. They're united by the emotional damage inflicted by these toxic, self-centered fathers. And that provides the necessary emotional safety for their relationship to survive.
A safe space that is immediately threatened by the second crisis, triggered on visiting day. And this proves that external approval remains Chuck Roberts' highest priority.
Chuck Roberts calls to announce his quick engagement to Nora and their wedding in Palm Springs. But Aurora's attendance isn't about love, it's transactional. He needs her there for the magazine exclusive.
And critically, he immediately dismisses Russ. He explicitly forbids her from bringing him, telling her she won't even remember who he is after you stop playing make-believe at that farm.
That phrase, make-believe at that farm, it triggers an existential breakdown for Aurora. It dismisses her entire effort at self-discovery and growth.
It shatters the fragile confidence she'd built. She spirals, believing the camp experience is a failed attempt at changing and that she will just disappoint Russ.
It reflects her deep fear of rejection. She immediately starts packing, desperate to flee before she can be truly abandoned.
But Russ, seeing this, responds with this unwavering commitment that immediately breaks his biggest rule, the rule that secured his entire stability.
He finds her, sitting amidst the packing chaos, and comforts her. And he delivers the ultimate declaration of loyalty, prioritizing Aurora over his job, over his financial stability. He says, if you go, I go.
He assures her, you could never disappoint me, Aurora, and you don't need to be anybody but yourself.
This is Russ breaking his own family cycle of abandonment. He's choosing vulnerability and commitment over financial safety and rigid rules.
And moments later, they break the camp's central rule, sealing their commitment physically, only to be immediately caught by Jenna.
The physical commitment happens fast. They're tearing off clothes. And just as intimacy begins, Jenna shouts Aurora's name and opens the door, catches them both, half-naked Russ with a visible erection pressed against his boxers. The rule-breaking reaches its climax, forcing their secret life into the open, right before they have to face the chaotic realities of their parental relationships. The emotional commitment and the physical rule break are now just inextricably linked.
We've hit maximum intensity. We're in part 5, the fallout. And the immediate crisis involves Jenna and Aurora's mom are waiting in reception simultaneously.
It's unbelievable. Jenna, though she's initially pissed at catching them violating the most important rule, has her attention completely diverted by this shocking confluence of external crises. They're forced to immediately deal with their pasts right there in the lobby, moments after they decided to commit to their future in secret.
And Russ's father arrives, not to condemn, but to apologize. He reveals this significant step toward recovery that Russ has craved for years.
The father confesses that Russ's mother finally went through his phone, saw what he had been hiding, and kicked him out. She admits he understands the damage he has done, and, crucially, states he wants to find help, implying he's going to seek addiction treatment.
This is the moment Russ finally receives the parental accountability he needed, and it was forced by his mother's boundary setting.
Absolutely. And at the same time, Aurora's mother also arrives, recognizing her daughter's pain immediately, something she rarely did before.
She came because she knew Chuck's announcement would upset Aurora. She states it so plainly. Your dad is an asshole, Aurora.
And she offers the vital piece of context that allows Aurora to heal. She says Chuck Roberts dislikes Aurora because she is a carbon copy of her mother, and he reserved all his affection for Elsa, who is Chuck's double.
That shifts Aurora's entire self-perception. She realizes the problem wasn't her own inherent lack of worth.
It's the ultimate external validation. Aurora realizes her father's behavior isn't about her failings or actions. It's about a serious character flaw within Chuck Roberts that he is unwilling to fix. She no longer needs to chase validation because the source of rejection is fundamentally broken, not her.
Meanwhile, their relationship crisis with the camp is immediately resolved by Jenna. She prioritizes genuine emotional health over camp bureaucracy.
Jenna tells Russ he won't be fired. And her justification is hilarious and so grounded in reality. She says staff fraternization is so common that if we had to fire every member of staff who fooled around together, we'd have no staff.
So she gives them her blessing.
She does. She tells him she loves Aurora. She knows Russ loves her too and tells him to go make her happy. She recognizes that this relationship is healthy, unlike the toxic family structures they're escaping.
But the immediate peace is short-lived. Just before they leave camp, Russ faces one final emotional breakdown, and it's rooted in his lifelong fear of being pitied.
Russ's brother calls Aurora's phone, which she answers by accident, to inform Russ that their dad has entered an addiction program and wants to make amends. Instead of relief, Russ he shuts down. He pushes Aurora away, overwhelmed by the news and this crippling fear that she will pity him for his family's reality.
He fears she'll see the mess and decide he isn't worthy of her safe, established life.
And this is the final hurdle. Russ's inability to accept his own value and his fear of radical vulnerability. But Aurora steps up. She refuses to let the pattern of avoidance define them.
She delivers the most powerful scene of commitment in the story. It's a clear, non-negotiable ultimatum.
She refuses to let them default back to the miscommunication thing. Her ultimatum is brilliant because it forces immediate, sustained honesty. She says, either we get into the truck together and for the next 4 hours we talk, or we can sit in silence, and when we get to Maple Hills, we go our separate ways.
She insists they are not miscommunicators and must share secrets, stating clearly, you're my first choice, Russ. Where you go, I go. You don't have to face this alone.
That declaration, you're my first choice, is the direct counterpoint to his entire lifetime of feeling like a disappointment.
And Aurora follows through immediately with her own defining decision about her father, solidifying her commitment to her own self-worth.
She calls Chuck Roberts and explicitly refuses to attend the wedding, stating she will not fake smiles for him. This is her final, definitive break from the cycle of seeking his approval.
And the detail about her sister Elsa is so key. It shows the toxicity ran deeper than just Aurora.
Exactly. Elsa calls shortly after, congratulating Aurora on finally growing a backbone, and reveals her own boundary setting. She has set up a reroute for their father's calls straight to a therapist's office in London. Both sisters recognize the pathology, and they set hard, unified boundaries to protect their lives.
So with the family cycle seemingly broken and radical honesty established, we look toward their future. And that starts with Russ's unexpected professional hockey ambitions, or lack thereof.
Russ reveals a surprising truth. He does not want to play professional hockey. He only pursued collegiate hockey because it secured him a full scholarship. He fears that fame and the intense spotlight will just enable his father's addictive behavior and destroy the private, safe life he now values with Aurora.
He chooses stability and privacy over the destructive allure of professional success.
He does. And he also fully cleanses himself of the shame surrounding the rink incident, which started that whole cycle of him seeking stability with the hockey team in the first place.
He shares the full, mortifying details.
Yeah, that he was used by this girl, Leah, to make her boyfriend jealous, and when she found out she was pregnant, she lied and blamed Russ's team, which led to her brother trashing the rink. And Aurora, having already heard the partial negative version of the story, immediately reassures him that he was the victim, not the fuck-up.
This shared secret closes the loop on Russ's greatest source of internal shame. It allows him to define himself moving forward, not by his past mistakes.
And finally, the ultimate symbol of their commitment to this low-key, safe life, the Meadow Springs bookstore dream.
This is the manifestation of their values.
It is. They discuss their long-term dream for the tiny town of Meadow Springs, the one with the fire station, police station, and 3 bowling ball stores. And Aurora determines she will open a bookstore called The Happy Ending.
And she's going to promote sin by selling dirty romance books and scandalize the townsfolk. And Russ agrees to open a rival bowling store.
This choice, a small local business dedicated to community and intimacy, focusing on stories of hope, it's the perfect symbol of the safe, authentic life they chose over the external, high-stakes career success that corrupted their fathers.
And we know this plan works. The final acknowledgments confirm their successful trajectory.
They're married. The text refers to Russ as her husband. We also get status updates on their friends. Henry and Nate have children. And Russ notes that Aurora is a natural at running the bookstore, confirming their choice led to a blissfully happy state, one that was achieved not through grand gestures, but through consistent, radical honesty.
So what does this all mean for the learner? Let's synthesize the core conflict of Russ and Aurora's deeply complex journey.
The knowledge nugget here, I think, is that true intimacy comes from confronting a shared pathology, not from avoiding it. Their shared experience of toxic parental relationships, Russ with addiction and emotional blackmail, Aurora with profound neglect and transactional love, that wasn't a barrier.
Paradoxically, it was the only thing that gave them the capacity to recognize and support each other's deepest pain.
Exactly. Their growth hinges on the power of vulnerability over self-punishment. Russ lived in constant fear of being a fuck-up, which drove him to extreme lengths to follow rules. And Aurora, she sought conflict and manufactured low expectations to avoid the vulnerability of a true rejection.
They finally achieved happiness by consciously deciding to break these established family cycles, by setting boundaries.
Russ's mother kicking out his father, Aurora explicitly refusing her father's wedding, refusing the fake smiles. These were decisive, painful breaks from a toxic obligation that forged their future together. They chose honesty over the appearance of familial harmony.
And the source material provides such a clear dichotomy of what success looks like. External markers of achievement, pro hockey, socialite status, billion-dollar companies, were ultimately shown to mask these severe internal and family conflicts. They often enabled the toxicity.
While the low-key life choices, a summer camp job, a small-town bookstore, provided the structure for healing, for authenticity, and for happiness. And if knowledge is most valuable when you understand it and apply it, this raises an important question for you, the listener.
If these characters found happiness by rejecting the high-status life and leaning into their private shared vulnerability, how often do we prioritize surface achievements or external approval over cultivating a private life that actually makes us feel safe and happy, as Aurora finally felt after breaking her own self-imposed rules?
It's a powerful thought to carry into your week. Thank you for joining us for the deep dive.
We'll see you next time.